Vidit, with his most insane opening preparation, today blasted it off on the board against Parham Maghsoodloo in the 11th round of the Tata Steel Chess 2024. The game went on with d4 by Maghsoodloo, d5, knight f3, knight f6, c4, e6. That was the Queen's Gambit declined, happening on the board. And guys, here today you are in for an opening lesson. E3 is the main move, 22,000 games in this line, but Maghsoodloo goes for A3, also played, but around 1,000 games there. With it goes C5, quite a dynamic way to go on. D takes C5, bishop takes C5, and now E3. Some transpositions there. With it develops the knight to C6, queen goes to C2. Now the idea is either white would like to long castle or he would like to get the rook on d1. With it continues with queen a5. By the way, an interesting point to note here is very recently, just not even a month ago, Maghsoodloo had this position where Carlsen played rook e8, rook d1, and this happened in Carlsen versus Maghsoodloo in World Rapid recently in Uzbekistan. With it went queen a5, and rook d1 is the move which Maghsoodloo chooses instead of long castle. Well, this has been played a lot by Carlsen as well. Also, Karpov Korchnay match, this has been played in by Korchnay. So rook d1 here, and h6 was played by Vidit. Now at rook d1, you know that there are around 2000 games, and suddenly with h6 there are only 11 to 15 games. So this move is obviously got Maghsoodloo into some thought there after h6. Yes, rook d8 has also been played. It has been played by Caruana with Carlsen in the World Championship match. It has also been played by Vichy with Carlsen. But over here, Vidit chooses h6, a very subtle move, asking white, what are you going to do? Because if he develops bishop e2, then knight e4 would be the idea. And please note that Vidit actually has played this at cd5. It ended in a draw with Caruana. Vidit was white and it was an online game last year. Also, yeah, if you don't go bishop e2 and if you go b4, always remember it is not at all easy to go for b4 because of ideas with knight b4, a b4, bishop b4. There's a deadly pin here. You try to defend, this knight jumps in, and it's all a devastating attack. So you can't go b4. So it was a question to white, what can you do? Because if you go bishop d3, then a nice move there. Black to play, guys, do think a bit and then check out a video. D4 would be the incoming, because if you take, black is super comfortable in the opening here. So also nothing to worry about bishop h7 because there's knight h7 and this should be okay. So after thought, what Maghsoodloo did for h6, he had to firstly go in some long thought, and then he goes knight d2, stops knight e4, also closes down this pin. Plus for d4 he has ideas with knight b3, so that's what he plays, knight d2. But Vidit says, I don't really care. He goes d4 anyway. In comes knight b3. Of course, if you take, then black is super happy with this knight jumping in, e5 incoming. So d4, knight b3 played. With it goes queen b6 there. The first question is, why not knight a4? Is white winning a piece? Absolutely, that's what happened in the game. But another thing is, if knight takes c5, white feels that, oh, he can just chop off this bishop. Knight c5, queen c5, push the queen back, b4, queen e7, because if you go to b6, there is c5 incoming, so queen e7, and then why not just take this pawn over here? That's a fair question, and in fact, this has been played by Divya a few days ago, a few months ago with Chance Sargasian with an amazing preparation as well, because the point here is a5 was the move which she did even play in the game. And if you go b5, the problem is you take, and there comes e5 with attack over here. If you try to go rook e4, then you win this material. And important to notice, this queen captures here, attacks this thing. So this would be a lot of preparation there, where black does land in a comfortable position, but very comfortable and happy position. Only problem is if you're not prepared, it can be deadly, because you would feel something like taking something like this, and there are very subtle nuances in the position that after queen e4, suddenly you don't have queen a3 ideas because there's no pawn on b5. So this is all very subtle, which Divya had played a few months ago. Going back to our game, because after queen b6, what white played was knight a4. And here you must pause for a bit, because Vidit found an amazing move. He was prepared here, he played very quickly, and the move is bishop b4 check. Yes, you cannot really take here, because if you take, there is queen b4 and the a4 knight is attacked. Then if the knight goes back, then there comes e5. So this is all a big problem. If the bishop goes back, you just take the piece, and if the bishop gives up itself, then you capture it. And after knight d4, knight c4, black is again having a very comfortable position. So after bishop b5, after bishop b4, white could have also thought of knight d2, but then jumps in queen a5. Once again, literally not worrying about the b4 bishop, because when the queen moves, you always have e5. So this is something important to note. It's not easy to take here. d3, the king would be in trouble, but if knight f3, then the queen goes back. So this would be possible continuation there. All of this opening preparation by Vidit was just simply amazing. In the game, here Maghsoodloo makes a move which shocks everybody. He finds it on the board. He takes a lot of time, but he does find this move, king e2. Now, how is such a move going to work? The king in the center, black is so better developed. Vidit very quickly goes queen a6. He is again prepared for all of this. Knight takes d4 now, because a4 was attacked. So knight d4, knight takes d4 check, e takes d4. Yes, rook d4 was possible, and Vidit could have just brought his bishop back then. But here, after e d4, he goes bishop d6, trying to get rid of this dark square, because when the opponent's king is in the center, what do you want to do? You want to break open the center. So e5 is something black would really love, for that to get rid of one of the controller of e5. So bishop d6 there, and Maghsoodloo goes knight c5. Now, it is for the first time that Vidit goes into a very long thought. He takes almost around 25 minutes. But again, something very important I must mention, that he was around 1 hour up than his opponent. So which was an important factor to be able to think very calmly in such a position how to continue. So 1 hour up, with the king on e2, a great psychological advantage. You are better prepared than your opponent. What happens next? Knight c5, with it takes the knight, d takes e5, and of course this move e5 on your wish list. That's what he plays. You obviously cannot take here. There is a deadly pin, rook e8, f4 would be very bad, bishop g4, and you lose material. So not that. If you go back, then there is knight g4 to worry about. That also doesn't look good. Here we were expecting bishop takes h6, because now if you take g takes h6, then jumps in rook d6, and when the queen moves, you can take on f6. So this could have been a possibility with bishop e6 and some weakness over here, but also with it had some choices of intermezzo to add. Bishop e6, completely ignore taking the bishop and attack the c4 pawn. So instead, what happened in the game was rook d6 was played by Maghsoodloo, attacking the queen, and Vidit went queen a5, attacking the c5 guy. And at this point, Maghsoodloo takes on h6. Now this is not the best idea, because he missed something. The move order, this doesn't work. Also, if he would have gone back to e3, which was an important move, going back knight g4, then challenging the queen here on a5. If the queen goes back, kicking the knight away, forcing him to exchange. But this was some idea where the king can run to f2 and the development can happen. Instead, bishop h6 was super tempting for Maghsoodloo. He takes that, and with it, here again goes into a long thought. Once again, he has a lot of time, so he can afford that. He finally, after a thought of 25 minutes, he takes on c5. A very important move there. Queen c5, finds it, and the whole idea after rook f6 was not to take any of them, gf6 or gh6, but this beautiful backward queen move, queen e7. Now to find this on the board was such a difficult idea, that too at from this point, because you first take here and after taking you go back. This was the move Vidit was also very happy about finding on the board. In fact, he is absolutely mesmerized by, I guess, finding this his own move. So queen e7. After that, Maghsoodloo, I believe, he must have missed this for sure, but he continues with bishop takes g7, because if you try to save your rook to f3, then comes in bishop g4 and e4 idea. So anyway, white is losing that exchange. So if you also try to save your bishop back, then this is hanging. So if you go bishop g5, there is gf6 and you just material down. He goes bishop g7, king g7, and the rook goes back to f5. Now Vidit says, I don't really need to take your rook. So he goes a nice move, rook d8, very classy. If the rook goes here or here, please remember bishop g4 is happening. So rook d8, anyway, you cannot save the rook. White goes h4 here. Vidit takes the rook right now. Queen takes f5. Rook goes to d4 on this in the center, and clear idea with rook d8 here. White goes king e1. Well, whatever you do anyway, rook d8 is a problem. So king e1, rook went to d8, bishop e2, queen goes to d6 with a checkmate incoming. Queen g5 check, and the king and the queen had to go back to c1. And now Vidit goes queen g6, a nice little move attacking g2. g3 was played here. Yes, there were other possibilities with king f1, but then rook d2 is very powerful anyway. Rook d2 happens. Queen e4 could have been a little stronger, but nevertheless rook d2 also keeps a great advantage. Rook goes to h2. The pieces for white are super disconnected. The king, very important to note was that the king can't castle. Sometimes you can forget it and make this illegal move, but here no, in a classical game you cannot forget it. So after g3, rook d2, rook h2, rook c2, queen goes to e3, rook takes b2, and you cannot stop this rook from coming to the 7th rank. Check here, the king goes here and lands up in a no check position. Queen b1 check, king g2, Vidit takes the bishop here, and Maghsoodloo resigns. Oh my god, what a epic opening preparation, keeping control of the time, the lines, the calculation at some point to find the best move. If he wouldn't have found that queen e7 idea, Vidit would have been in some trouble. So it had to be followed up with the opening preparation as well. So this was amazing what Vidit found out on the board. Hats off to his play today. By the way, this is the ranking after today's round. Abdusattorov is the sole leader, followed by Gukesh, and there we have Anish, Vidit, and Wei on 6.5. With this win, he goes to the 4th place, and it was an epic opening preparation. So guys, Vidit OP in the comment section below.